To Minneapolis now, and remember when Democrat Mayor Jacob Frey dropped to his knees and wept at the coffin of George Floyd as BLM rioters tore apart his city? Well, even that wasn't enough to save him, because the Minnesota Democratic Party has now endorsed Omar Fateh for Minneapolis mayor. The Somali-American state senator is American-born, but his focus is almost entirely on the Somali community.
Right now, we're blessed to have 3 Somali elected officials at the Capitol. Me, Sister Holden Hassan, who's in the State House, and Brother Mahmoud Noor. And we work very closely together, and we carry each other's bills.
And yes, Omar was born and bred in the US, but he refers to Somalia as home.
I understand that our Somali communities are all connected to each other here in Minnesota and back home, and I ask for your support. There's always been a link between our community here as well as back home, and I'm running to bridge that gap and unite all of us.
Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gada. Kosha, first New York and now Minneapolis. We've got 2 socialists here who are front runners to be mayors of major cities. Is this the future of the Democrats?
Sadly, I think it is, and for these great cities all across America and all around the world. New York, as you mentioned, London, Rotterdam, Calgary, and on the list goes. I think there are 2 important lessons here for those willing to learn them. One is the downstream effects of immigration and the myth of multiculturalism, the myth of the melting pot, the myth of what they call the magic dirt theory, that these countries have magical dirt and you can import vast quantities of people from very different countries, very different cultures, very different loyalties, plop them on the dirt, and somehow they magically assimilate. Doesn't happen. When there's critical mass of them, they will be more loyal to their ethnic enclaves, as you see here, and they're not representative of the vast majority of the populations that they're representing. The second, I think, is don't pander, because Jacob Frey, the incumbent mayor who's now being challenged, the election isn't until November, as you mentioned, he cried at the coffin. He was planning a trip to Somalia to try and forge ties, given that 10% of the city's population is now Somali. And Jacob Frey, where has that gotten you? Not very far.
Not very far at all. And the demographic changes there are obvious. Minnesota is home to the largest Somali population in the US. What's been the impact of that? Because we've seen that with other elected politicians. It's only 10%, you said, of the population, but it seems to be having a fairly dramatic impact.
Because I think it's at critical mass. So it's like 6% of London, for instance, is similar to the Muslim majority group. But when there's enough critical mass of them, they can really band together and outvote people maybe who are not as organized. We don't have mandatory voting in the US. So if you turn out the vote in these communities and have messaging that resonates to them and their specific interests, that can happen. It's the land of Ilhan Omar, the infamous congresswoman, also from Somalia as well. So she's a case in point, and now at the local mayoral level, we might very well see the same thing.
Now, played some of Hunter Biden's commentary about George Clooney, Team Obama, cracker cocaine. There was a wide-ranging interview he did. It was a wild ride. But he also had this to say recently about Nancy Pelosi and Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra.
It clearly made a decision. And when I say they, I mean the speaker. And, you know, I heard Alexandra Pelosi say something, call my like, put your big girl pants on to my mom or something. And I kind of feel like saying, who the do you think you are? I would never speak about your mom that way. Yeah. I would never speak about your father that way. I would never insult your parents that way.
Kosha, a lot of bad blood there, and we're learning just who was behind Joe Biden being knifed, being pushed out of running for re-election. And as we suspected, Nancy Pelosi had a bit to do with it.
100%. And it's interesting because you don't see it in Democrat circles. They really are very good at putting up a united front, unlike the Republicans, who tend to be this circular firing squad often. So when you see these cracks and just everything that happened in those last 100 days, it is interesting. It was widely reported at the time that Jill Biden was very hurt by Pelosi specifically, and she had this phrase that we were friends for 50 years. I was very disappointed by it, that got picked up in various press outlets. And I think Hunter is just putting more color onto that. It was Pelosi, maybe Chuck Schumer, Obama, Clinton, possibly in the background. But, you know, Pelosi remains a power player, and when it looked like they might lose to Trump, which they went on to do anyway, the knives indeed came out.
They did. What a fascinating time, and how time flies, because it's now been a year since Kamala Harris began her campaign to be president, and she bizarrely celebrated this milestone, her failure, by posting this. She wrote, "1 year ago today, I began my campaign for President of the United States. Over the 107 days of our race, I had the opportunity and honour to travel our nation and meet with Americans," blah, 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 blah. And she goes on about whether you are attending a protest, calling your representatives, or building community, I want to say thank you. We are in this fight together. Kosha, she still obviously doesn't get it. She didn't have a single primary vote. She was installed into the role. She squandered $1.5 billion in around 15 weeks to lose every swing state, to lose the popular vote and lose the Electoral College in a landslide.
And yet, I think she's a sign of our times and this whole concept of failing upwards.
Yeah.
That once you're in the club and you get to a certain level, there's nowhere else to go but up. I can see it now, a book deal, like 107 days.
Netflix special.
How I did it, Netflix special, speaking circuit. She's already repped by CAA, the preeminent talent agency.
Well, she was in Australia not a couple of months ago
at
a real estate conference. How bizarre.
I know, I think that was her warm-up for bigger things. But, you know, she's going to make the rounds. I don't think she's going to be remembered in the history books, but for now, at least, she's going to monetize her short burst of fame, and she came precariously close to the nuclear codes, but thankfully did not get them.
No, thank God. I was worried that they were going to install her as president, make Biden step down. So she went into the election already being the incumbent and having that advantage. But thankfully, she wasn't the first female president.
That was a theory that they might do that. But
I'm surprised they didn't, because I think they believed their own publicity in the end. They believed that those polls were accurate. Now, let's look at this post from the president of El Salvador, possibly the most popular leader in the world right now, Nayib Bukele. And here he calls out the prisoners sent from El Salvador to Venezuela. Some of these prisoners claim to have been terribly mistreated, but they look pretty healthy. Look at them here. Look at this guy. Looks in good shape. Getting on the plane, a picture of help, but getting off the plane, he needed help. Better get the wheelchair out as well. Kosha, America has Trump, but South America right now has two fairly extraordinary leaders as well, Javier Milei in Argentina and Bukele in El Salvador, and what they've been able to achieve is quite astonishing.
Yes, these cultures are ones that do traditionally really like the strong man, and they've revered kind of the machismo and that strong figure, even though, interestingly, they've had weak, feckless leaders for many years, like many other countries. But both of them are really a case in point, in the case of Milei, of how to turn around an economy and reduce the addiction to unlimited spending of government, which is something plaguing many countries, and he's done it in rapid speed. And then Bukele is a great example of how to reduce criminality, where El Salvador was the homicide capital of the world, and look at it now. So every other city and country that's plagued with similar issues can take a page out of their playbook, but they don't seem to have the political will to do so.
No, and if they were of the left and they had this extraordinary success in such quick time, they'd be held up as examples around the world. The media would be celebrating them. You look at Milei, what he's been able to do with the inflation rate in Argentina, the economy there, and as you say, Bukele, it's become, I think, the safest country in South America now. In fact, safest, one of the safest in North or South America.
Right, in like less than 10 years. Which is incredible that it can be done if you actually prosecute people and go tough on crime.
Yeah, surprisingly, when you put criminals in jail, they can't commit further crimes. It's a fairly novel concept that we don't seem to be grasping here. Now, let's go to LA. We all recall the devastating wildfires in California early this year. There was a concert, a big fundraiser that managed to raise $100 million, an enormous amount for the victims that lost everything, but where is the money? It turns out the victims have got none of that. It's all going to NGOs. Here is Sue Pascoe, who investigated this story, and she's also a victim of these fires.
This fire aid money is not helping the people. It's helping nonprofits, many of them who have executives that are getting a six-figure salary. The money is not going to the victims that you wanted the money to go to.
Kosha, if we learned anything from USAID is that so many of these NGOs have got enormous fraud happening. They're full of hard left activists, and that's not what people donated money for. I'm guessing most people who put money into this fundraiser were hoping it would go to those who lost their homes and have nothing.
It really is outrageous. NGOs and even other institutes, like the Clinton Institute has been cited as this, or other things as well, like the BLM movement and Patrisse Cullors. What they do is, on paper, it's legal, often, because they'll take the money, but then they just run these bloated, fat administrative functions, executives taking huge salaries, as she mentioned, and like so much stuff for expense reimbursement and all that administrative stuff. And then the actual percentage of the donations that they raise that go to the actual cause is sometimes less than 10%. And that is shameful. And even either it's outright illegal in some cases, or it may not be, but it's just shameful practice. And I wonder if those stars and people who did the concert to raise that money are going to speak out, because they actually do have a platform, and it would be nice if we see some pushback.
It would be good if some of those artists, and there were big names who participated in that, say something, because, yeah, there seems to be very scant coverage of the fact that there's this massive pot of money that's not actually helping who it's supposed to help. Now, let's hear from LA Mayor Karen Bass. Here she is asked about the Trump administration's impact on the border crisis.
Is there anything good you think the administration has done in these 6 months at the border?
Well, I will heap praise on the administration for the first 6 months in Los Angeles with the fires. If you ask me, is there anything that they have done good in terms of immigration? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that the viewpoint has been punitive, has been let's make it as miserable as possible so that these people don't come.
And whatever they're doing is certainly working at the border itself. We were down on that border, and it is dramatically different.
Even the ABC, US ABC, admitting there that whatever they're doing at the border is working. But Karen Bass can't bring herself to admit that. She couldn't find one good thing about their border policy, despite the fact that we've got record low illegal immigration.
It's undeniable. I think she said the quiet part out loud, which is she doesn't want the border crossings to go down to zero. Like, for their worldview, having big rampant border crossings is a good thing, because it was part of the strategy, importing voters, creating chaos, whatever the more sinister rationales are. And if that's your goal, then everything that's happening is not good. I think that's what she's thinking. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, it's astonishing, because you can't deny that there's been a lot of human suffering that has been saved. A lot of people who are killed crossing that border, who are trafficked, who are children who go missing. I mean, the evil that's happened there in recent years has really not been fully comprehended.
Yeah, and it's often underreported, the 300,000 or so children still missing that were let in under the Biden administration. So for the humanitarians out there that cry, that should be the one stat that they should be pointing to, and they don't.
Absolutely. Kosha Gada, thank you so much.
Pleasure.